Shalom, shalom. I'm start up by giving all praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Ruach HaKodash. I want to say double honor to our apostles who are elders who rule well. Blessings and salutations to you brothers out there teaching and enduring truth and sincerity. Another blessed salutation to the innumerable multitude and the wheat that amongst tares that follow this truth and sincerity, women and children, as well. Including an innumerable multitude. A sincere habathum to you, okay? So I wanted to get into, I had clicked on some things on social media, and my algorithm switched, aggressively, with the so-called anti-Semitic rhetoric, which the word going against the small hats, and that word anti-Semitic the word Semitic goes back to Shem, okay? So, so to be anti-Semitic is an oxymoron, specifically when it comes to Arabs, so-called white people, Caucasians, Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, all right, people of that genre. But if you're talking about Ham, which is the Africans or Samoans or island people, those are only people that can be anti-Semitic, but Chinese people can't be, Japanese people can't be, because they all come from the line of Shem, all right? Chinese, Japanese come from the line of Lot, which comes from the line of Shem, all right? Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans come from the line of Abraham. Esau comes from the line of Abraham. The Arabs come from the line of Abraham, all right? Including the small hats, they come from the line of Abraham, but they weren't of the chosen seed. So let's get that, all right? So I'm going to read this precept real quick. It says in 2nd Ezra 6:54, it says, "And after these, as Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him came we all." Because everybody comes from Adam, obviously, right? Well, the people that the Lord didn't destroy, because, Adam's lineage survived, the flood via through Noah, okay? So this is after these, Adam also, and not Slack, I jumped past something, because Adam, it wasn't just Adam and Eve. Adam was a nation of people. Then there was also creatures, which is another creatures could be animals and people, fish, animals, creatures, period. Because, you can read in Genesis, the first chapter, it says, the creatures came out of the water, and people think that's fish or how, mammals were made and things like that. And that's not entirely true. Mammals do come out of the water. They could deal with land and water type of deal. But it's also talking about human beings, all right? Because there's a scripture that tells matter of fact, let's see if I can get it real quick. It's for edification. There's a couple of them, but I'm looking for the one that's in the book of the Lord. All right, so in Mark 16:15, it says, "And he said unto them, Go ye into the world and preach the gospel to every creature." All right, so it ain't talking about to every hippo and crocodile, okay? It's talking about to people, okay? So just want to go over that. Going back into 2nd Ezra 6:54, it says, "And after these Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen." Okay, and it's not those small hats. And the title of this lesson will be, who are the Ashkenazis? Because as you see in the article, not in the article, but in the post, I have a screenshot still saying that anti-Semitism surges to levels not seen since World War II. Okay, and I've been sharing a lot of stuff, and like I said, our algorithm got flooded. But let me get to this, and then I'll speak on that. And it says, verse 50, 2 Ezra 6:55. It says, "All this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes." Okay. As for the other people which also came of Adam, thou hast said they are nothing but be like unto spittle. All right, and has likened the abundance of them as a drop that falleth from the vessel. Okay, and now, O Lord, these heathen have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us and to devour us. All right, but we thy people, which is the Negroes, Latino, and Native Americans, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, thy only begotten, and thy fervent lover, are given into their hands. If the world now be made for our sakes, because the world is not made for everybody. All right, the world is made for the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which are the true tribes of Israel. And a person might say, well, why are these other people here? To be in subjection unto them. All right. And we ain't talking about Edomite subjection. We're not talking about the oppression that we're going through right now. You got to be, stop being dim-witted and thinking that this system is a universal way of life. No, this is, as the scriptures say, when the wicked rule, the people mourn. Okay. And the wicked is ruling right now. Okay. It says, if the world now be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure? And that's a good question. But it's not like a good question that we don't know. To you don't know. It's a lot of proof in that, saying that we don't have a possession in this world, which is further proof that we're Israelites, man. We don't have nothing to say that's our own in this world. Okay, even though these small hats like to proclaim that, that they don't have a possession because they're in our land fighting in the scriptures, which if they were the Israelites, then they should when we return to our land, we shall beat our swords into plowshares. So they don't fit prophecies. Okay, so we're gonna get to get an example. Isaiah 2:1, it says, the word of the Lord, the word that Isaiah, Amos, son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall come to pass that, in the last days, that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go in and say, come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of Jacob. It's like to the house of the power of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Okay, and this they've come into the mountain, which is a governing body. They've established themselves in Jerusalem, came back to the land, and they're trying to establish themselves as a government, and they have to do it through bloodshed. All right, nations are not flowing into them, bringing them victuals. All right, they're actually what's the word? Extorting through debt. Okay, so going back to what I was saying with we are who comes from the line of Shem with the anti-Semitic statement. I want to get this last precept, and then we're gonna get to it. So we're gonna go into Second Ezra again. chapter 3. The point is in 16. But we'll go into verse 11. It says, "Nevertheless, one of them thou leftest, namely Noah, with his household, of whom came all righteous men." Remember, we read everybody came from Adam. Well, Adam was born, and then his predecessor or his successor, Noah, was the only one that survived the flood. Him and his household. Okay, and thus Adam's lineage is the only thing that survived after the flood. All right, so that's why it was said in the previous chapter, chapter 6, that we all come from Adam. All right, so it says, "And it happened when that they that dwell upon the earth began to multiply," this is verse 12, "and had gotten them many children and were a great people, they began again to be more ungodly than the first." And this is what's going on now. People are becoming way more ungodly. There's it's so ungodly that people don't believe in the right power, and the power that they think is the Most High is an anti-Messiah. Not only is it not him physically, but it's not his ways. It's the opposite. All right. They chose a different people to be the chosen people. They chose a different concept. They chose different. You don't have to keep the laws in the Bible. You keep the laws. You could do what you want, eat what you want, say what you want, and all you gotta do is say in Jesus' name, and you're gonna be all right. So which is opposite to the Lord. You gotta believe on him, and believe that he's the Messiah. But there's things that comes along with that. Okay. So it says, "Now when they lived so wickedly before thee, thou didst choose thee a man from among them, whose name was Abraham. Him thou lovest, and unto him only thou shouldest thy will." Okay? So, like I said, to be anti-Semitic, Moabites, Chinese can't be anti-Semitic, Japanese, Arabs, East Indians. Like there's a lot of people that come from the line of Shem. Okay, there's a whole lot of people. All right, but that's just a word to deflect, that they use to deflect, and no one bats an eye because everybody just believes what Esau says. But the horns is being revealed. And it's a beautiful thing because the head is being revealed, all right? And as the scriptures say, the least of the flock shall draw them out, all right? Let's get that real quick. So Jeremiah 50 and 45, it says, "Therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord, that he that have taken against Babylon," which is talking about America. Okay, America is the daughter of Babylon. So sometimes in Jeremiah, Isaiah, the book of the prophets, because the book of the prophets is mainly written during the Babylonian captivity, the Assyrian and the Babylonian captivity, and the Medo-Persian Empire. Of course, it was written. A lot of prophets that were roaming around the world were roaming around in that time. That's when a big cluster of prophets happened, and it's not a coincidence that that's the same case now. Okay, that there's a huge surge of prophets coming around in this time, because the scriptures tell you prophets shall prophesy against many countries and kingdoms of evil and pestilence to come. Okay, and so when there's a huge takedown, a calm before the storm, the Lord sends prophets. All right, with the tremors to the earthquake. Okay, so it says, "Therefore the Lord have counseled." I'm going to go to Jeremiah 49:20. It says, therefore hear the counsel of the Lord, that he that taketh against Edom and his purpose, because I read again, matter of fact, I finished Jeremiah 50 and 45. I'm going to get to 49 and 20 as well. It says, and all his purposes, sorry, I read it from the beginning. Therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord, that he have taken against Babylon and his purposes, that he have proposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. Okay, because when you go into who is the Ashkenazis, to be frank, they come from the Khazars. The Khazars were located in Georgia and Ukraine. They even flooded down to Ukraine when they was at their peak. Okay, which you got to think about that, because we'll get into that. It says, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their inhabitants desolate with them. Jeremiah 49 and 20 says, therefore hear the counsel of the Lord, that he have taken against Edom and his purposes, that he have purpose against the inhabitants of Teman. Okay, and Teman's today's Germanic tribes, because they have a lot to do with a lot of things, including the thermonuclear missiles, Planned Parenthood, contraceptives, the prescription drugs. They're the scientists of Edom, for the most part. It says, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. Once again, so the Lord has a destruction, because desolation goes back to destruction. Matter of fact, let's get that in etymology. Desolation, sorrow, grief, action of laying waste, destruction, of expulsion of inhabitants. Okay, so the Lord's gonna make Edom desolate. Okay, he's gonna make Edom desolate. He's gonna totally eradicate Edom, just like the Lord wanted, Saul to do it, because the Khazars, or the Edomites of the Khazars, go back to the Amalekites. Okay, and they call them the Ashkenazi. They're Eastern European Jews. And when you go into the Khazarian Empire, like I said, it's mainly, I believe it's Georgia, Russia. It's real close to Turkey. And it, flows south. Ukraine was involved. And these are important things, all right, because when you go into the book of the 13th tribe, those Ashkenaz or Khazars are converts. The book of the 13th tribe is provides proof that those Khazars were converts, because they were a major part of the Silk Road. They were a major part to being a back wall to the Byzantine Empire. Okay, not by choice, but just by geographical land plots. All right, which made them a useful ally. All right, which is another way how they gained power. And the reason why they converted was because you had the, I get the dates mixed up, so I don't want to say anything crazy, but I just keep it simple. You had the Muslim or the Caliphate or whatever, how you want to call it, because I believe what is like 300, 600, I think it was 600 BC when Islam began to reign. It's like 633 around there, where the Khazars were doing their thing. And then you had the Byzantine Empire, which was in the 300s. Okay, so what was going on is that Muhammad came up, and Muhammad was taking over everything, because that's how, once you get into 90 AD, after the fall in the great disperse, where we were spread across the four corners of the earth, which really began in the time of the Assyrian Empire, when we came to the North Americas via through the Northern Kingdom. But after the Lord was crucified, there was a great insurrection, not because of him, but because of the message that was left behind What I mean by that, it wasn't like he got crucified and all the Israelites just started bursting into, chaos and then started fighting against Rome. What I mean is that, his word and people were changing. You had Nero and a bunch of situations that caused, because he blamed the Israelites for the fires. You know what I'm saying? But it got up to a point that the Israelites, especially the people who believed in Yahweh Shai, were going around teaching and disrupting Rome. All right, and that caused a great dispersion. Okay, and a lot of Israelites fled into Eastern Europe. Okay, that's why it's a mix that the Khazars are not even the Khazars, because it's not like we mixed with Khazars, but we were in that region as well. Okay, actually before them. Okay, but what happened? You had the Rus, the Bulgars, a bunch of those guys too. All right. But the point is that the Israelites fled to Eastern Europe. They fled into North Africa. They fled into Saudi Arabia. Because you got Ashkenazi Jews, they got Sephardic Jews, things like that, which is, come from that spreading. All right. But getting back to what I was saying is that, Islam took over and it ended up taking most of Europe. Okay, especially when the Byzantine Empire fell, and that's how you get the Moors, because the Moors were Israelites, and also Ham, but mainly Israelites that took over, and they pretty much, became Islamic, okay, but then they split off because they weren't treated fairly, okay, even though they converted, because Islam said if you convert, then you're a brother. They don't go about nationality, but then they had little small print rules that they had, like taxing them a certain way or not giving them access to certain things. It wasn't like they were treated like shit, but they was not given access to certain things. It's like the Illuminati and the Boule type shit. You get some stuff, but you don't get what we got. But long story short, they broke off, and then they end up getting busy in into Europe, and even they flowed into Russia, modern day Russia as well, which is Gog and Magog and Georgia, Russia, that area. They flowed to that area. But the point is that, the Muslims and the Christians were fighting, and the Khazars were stuck in the middle, okay? And by them being stuck in the middle, they had to choose are you blood or Crip? What do you do? So they chose a middle ground, which was Judaism, because Christianity comes from Judaism, and Judaism and Islam comes from Judaism. So it was a nice center to say that you can play both sides, all right? So within that's where they converted and chose that, because I forget, they had an actual guy come up. I think he was a priest, and he was naming a bunch of stuff. This is in the book of the 13 tribe, and because he actually pulled up some nobles to counsel on what he should do, and an Israelite pretty much convinced him how to play both sides, and he went along with that. And it's like also said like Christians believe in this, and he didn't support certain things of Christianity based on how they represented themselves, blah blah blah. But the point is that a lot of those guys, a lot of those Khazars, bulk of those Khazars are Melakites that are today's Jewish people, okay? Small hats. All right, so with that being said, man, I'm going to a few things, regarding that, because there's a lot in regards to it. So when you go into Eastern European small hats or JOOs, okay, because if you see in the picture in the still, if you look at that hat, if you watch UFC, if you watch, you got I forget the guy from Poland. He's a little small guy, but he wears the same hat as the guy in this video, okay? And I'll read this real quick in the AI overview. It says Eastern European Jews or small hats. I'll say that because these guys. The thing about it is, it's so much to go over with it, but to say it in condensed form that these JOOs or Khazars or Amalekites, however you want to call them, they are they're the least of the flock of Edom, but when it comes to high-ranking positions, they are all the ones that are at the top. Okay, from political positions to entertainment positions, they're over the record labels, they're over football teams, they're over basketball teams, they're the judges, they're the lawyers, they are in all the noble positions, specifically in America, okay, and across the four corners of the earth, all right? Because remember, I said the Khazars were in the Middle East, or you could say Georgia, the Central Asia, and it went down to Ukraine, all right? Keep Ukraine in mind as well. It says Eastern European small hats are also called Ashkenazi small hats or JOOs. The term refers to a small hat ethno-religious group whose ancestors settled in Central and Eastern Europe, including Germany, Poland, and Russia. The name Ashkenazi comes from the medieval Hebrew name for their German name for Slovakia, the medieval name for Germany, and community grew significantly as it migrated east from where? Rhineland. Okay, because remember when I said that the small hats pretty much have a lot of riches in this land. So I went up and looked up a list of powerful small hats and positions, and you go to Yitzhak Herzog, which is the president of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, that's obvious, the prime minister of Israel. Then you go into the United States, which is this list is way longer. There's a lot more, like I said, with record labels, rap a lot and all, not rap a lot, but like Universal. You got CNN, they own CNN, they own I'm just firing off the hip, but they own things like that. Okay. And they're the main ones that are, when it comes to propaganda, when it comes to the Federal Reserve, which is our dollar, our money system, when it comes to the slave ships that brought us over here, when it comes to mafias in Chicago, all right, they wanted to pass the mafias off in Chicago as Italians when they weren't. It was them small hats. All right, there's a book, the elder Malcolm referenced me to, is Gangsters of Chicago, I believe, or something like that. I got to go get it, but that's where you can find where it's proof that those small hats, it was small hats and not Italians out there in Chicago getting busy like that. Okay, but and within the U.S. there's a lot of high positions that's not going to be named on the list I'm about to name. Okay, that's all I wanted to get across. But you got people like Chuck Schumer, Anthony Blinken, Janet Yellen. You got the chick that's in Mexico. She became president, because they're sneaking many ways. But it says Senate. I'm going to just name the position: Senate Majority Leader of the United States, Secretary of State as of January 2025, Secretary of the Treasury, Governor of Colorado, Governor of Pennsylvania, Governor of Illinois, Governor of North Carolina, Governor of Delaware, Governor of Hawaii, appointed to lead Z. Zeldin, appointed to lead the EPA. And then you have Zelensky, president of Ukraine. Okay, and like I said again, you have the chick over Mexico. It's a bunch, and then you got to deal with the fact that what's your boy name historically? Because I ain't gonna go all in the historical part, but it's J.P. Morgan. Because I looked up the Rockefellers, because the Rockefellers have a big part to play in funding feminism, because that's another thing. These small hats are really big into feeding the left side. All right, they're real big into, because when you go into their history, they got kicked out of a lot of countries, and they, a lot of lists try to incorporate the countries real Israelites were kicked out and mush into the countries they were kicked out. Israelites were knocked out of countries in ancient times, or real Israelites, for war reasons and things of that nature. But the small hats, they were going into countries and using usury, all right? And they're considered people goyim, all right, which means cattle, all right? And in the Talmud, man, they'll tell you, you don't tell the goyim the truth, do this. Pretty much people that are not small hats can be taken advantage of, cheated, killed. You could do anything to these people and it don't count as unrighteousness. It's like stepping on a roach. It's like lighting a fucking little spider's legs on fire. It's like it don't make you a killer, right? It don't make you evil to do that to a bug. It's just a bug. So that's how they look at the rest of the entire world. And what happens is that these people go into they went into these countries, all right, and were eventually kicked out, because what they do is that they always play victim, like, we ain't do nobody, no, we just a little peaceful. But what they do is they use usury, take over your businesses, take over things of that nature, and then use that that leverage system through like I said, with the Federal Reserve is a prime example of the usury system, and causes debt. Just like we are right now, we are living in the perfection of their system through the central banks. All right, we're living in the perfection of their usury system. Our whole money system is a usury system. All right, it's a fiat note, so let it be. All right, which is an unjust wage imbalance, which is wicked according to the scriptures. All right, let's get that real quick. Because you're not supposed to have that. It's crazy that, but they'll justify it, you know what I'm saying, and say, well, they're goyim, so we're able to do that, and as Esau, like, that's why the scripture says, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, you know what I'm saying? So when we look up into Proverbs 20 and 23, it says, diverse weights and balances are abomination unto the Lord, and a false balance is not good. All right. NLT says, the Lord detests double standards. He is not pleased by dishonest scales. And that's the money. That's why back in the day, a dollar, the dollar has been devalued at least 99, what it said, like 90% since it originated to this point, So I don't want to have to get all into the long rhetoric, but that's the point, is that the dollar can't buy, the buying power of the dollar changes, okay? And they took it from being backed by gold, and when they backed it by the stock market, it really got, it really became the waiver, okay? Because when you look at gold, the price of gold, man, it's just going up. It's just going up compared to the money, all right? And you look at a pie graph or a bar chart, and you're going to see, not a pie graph, but a bar chart, or, one of them, the ones with the lines. Right, man, you're going to see how fickle the fiat note is. But what makes it so powerful is that it's backed by, that is used to transact between countries. So when countries have to exchange money, because, who was that, man? I forget. I think it was, man, because they call it like the fire axe. Shit, man. No, I'm thinking about the Spaniards. But they I forget who it was, but they grew so powerful that their money became more important than other coins in the world, because of the kingdom grew so powerful, and people would take their money, that country's money, over their own money. And that's what happened. Like, the American dollar grew so powerful through the exploitations of America, mainly like World War One and really World War Two. They were given an opportunity to become a world power through World War Two, through the small hats, man, because that's why they freed them and gave them that land, and it's been hell ever since. That's why they fund them so much money. That's why they allow them to be in certain positions, because once they got that central bank in America, that's when they got their claws dug into this country. All right, because even though America was they had a part to play in from the beginning to end, but they didn't have the control. It was like, they did the ships, did things like that. They funded certain people, Christopher Columbus, they funded certain people. But eventually, once they had that central bank, they didn't have to convince this one guy. They got everything. Give me control of the money. I care not who makes the laws, right? So going back to what I was wanted to bring out was that, remember when I was speaking on the rich elite. Now you got J.P. Morgan and like I said, the Rockefellers, J.D. Rockefeller, and the Rockefellers period try to play themselves as philanthropists, people that go around the world helping things, but that's bullshit. They're or BS. I apologize. They try to push and nudge certain sides, nudge agendas. All right, feminism, civil rights movement, things of that nature. Black Lives Matter. They fund a lot of these. The Napoleonic Wars. They fund a lot of these situations. All right, and just like they're doing to this day, they're funding Ukraine. And they're funding Ukraine for a reason, because they ain't nothing but small hats too. All right? They ain't nothing but roosts and vulgar bulgars mixed with small hats. That's all it is. But when you look up, when I was speaking on that, a lot of small hats, or the origins of the small hats, come from the land of, come from Rhineland. And I looked up, where the Rockefellers small hats, and it said no, right? So, matter of fact, I read it real quick. It says, no, the Rockefellers are not small hats by nationality. They are of German descent, tracing their family to a village in the Rhineland. It have historical ties to the American Rockefeller family. The family's ancestry is European, not small hat. And their lineage is linked to German, English, and Ulster Scots heritage, with some ancestors possibly being Huguenots who fled religious persecution. Okay, so that shows you, that's proof that their, lineage goes, because all small hats don't claim to be JOOs, because, I had to re-enter the word search on this, because I sent in where, the Rockefellers small hats, and it said, no, they aren't. They're Christian. And I was like, oh, I got to reword it and said, ask, were they that by nationality? You know what I'm saying? And then it traced back to them going back to that land. Now, I don't know for a fact, but there's a connection there, that there's a strong coincidence that the Khazars, or the small hats, the Ashkenazi, come from Rhineland, and then the Rockefellers originated in Rhineland as well. Okay? And amongst the Rothschilds, okay? So these rich elite, all these major politicians, it's crazy that, a small percentage of the world's population owns the most of the world's wealth. and they do it by usury. Okay, they do it by debt. And again, they come up with schemes and systems that are totally unfair, to the average citizen. Just like the Federal Reserve System. It's a totally unfair system. You got a bank. They use your money as an asset when it's really supposed to be a liability, and they flip it and do all this, and they'll take your $100, you put it in the bank, and then they'll loan your $100 out, hoping that you don't take your $100 out. If everybody in the city put $100 in the bank, then they'll use that $2 million to loan out $500 to people. And if everybody's only taking out $10 every week, and then you got somebody paying, you loan out $500 to somebody, and they got to pay you $1,000 back, then you made $500 off of an asset or a liability and used it as an asset. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the wickedness of the system that they created, going back and forth, and then they created, to where, bailouts, to where if they fail, then say they loan out this money and then people can't pay it, and the banks start losing money or they got to go bankrupt, then they got legalities to where the country would then bail them out. That's what America does. America bails out the banks. When the banks start fucking up messing up because of their loans, because of their business ventures, then the country would then give them the money. All right, instead of giving the citizens the money, or not even giving the citizens the money, just pay off the debt. Right? You could just pay off the debt, but what they do is keep the debt alive, but then pay the banks money so they can loan out more debt. So it's like, I'm gonna give you, okay, you losing money, all right? You got less money than you have in a bank that people supposed to have deposits. So if they got 10 people that deposit $100, that's $1,000. But in the bank you got $50, and you got people asking for their money. Somebody coming asking for 60, another person coming ask for 30. Now you in a jam. So then the country will then bail you out. And then by bailing you out, they give you that money, but then they use that money to say, hey, use that to disperse loans, to give these people their money back, but you mainly use it to loan so you can keep adding your money and feeding yourself. When really that person could just give all them people their money back, or the country could give all them people their money back because that's their money to begin with, and then pay off the loans to balance the situation out. But that'll totally destroy the banks, okay? Because the banks ain't got no money, dog. They're just using our money as the money. All right, they're using liabilities as assets. That's all they're doing. All right, so this is why they get kicked out of all them countries. But they made their stop in America, and aka Babylon. And when you go into the statistics of where the major population of the small hats are, the bulk of them are in the daughter of Babylon, and the rest are in the Middle East, land of Israel. And that's why the Lord said He's going to destroy, Edom in the Middle East, man. You know what I'm saying? He's going to destroy Babylon, and he's going to lay flat the Middle East, the land of Jerusalem as well, because that's where they're located. All right. But yeah, man. It's a whole lot more to these people. It's a whole lot more to what's going on. But the last thing I wanted to say is that, I think this is me speaking as a man. I think something is going to come down the pipe, because they already putting out drones that are anti-propaganda against anti-Semitism. They're writing a bunch of laws that's against anti-Semitism. You got guys like Ben Sarpio, the guy that just got, off. He was part of the small hat community, but he started rebelling against them. Just like when celebrities do the same thing, they're going to get you wiped out, man. Because these small hats are with the transhuman idea. They're not good people. They don't even want humans, like, the Bill Gates and all that, man. These people are, you know, they're not normal people. They're the wicked of the earth. They don't care about human life. Again, they see everybody as cattle. So that's a dangerous group of people to be ruling the world. To look at you like a roach. If I let you live, I let you die. Don't make me no never mind. I might as well use you while you're here, type of energy. So yeah, man. I could go on forever about it, man. It's so much to the wickedness that they're doing, but I just kind of wanted to point out, that these people go back to the Khazars, the Eastern Europeans, and showing where they started from, where they stretched to. They had a lot of power. You read the book of 13 Tribe. There's a bunch of other books. It's not that deep to go into all these other books. Just know that, those people are converts, and you could tell by their customs. And that even with the Yiddish, it has Germanic and Germanic tones to that Hebrew dialect, which was changed. That's not the original Hebrew tongue. But yet when we sit there and speak and call on the name Yahweh Shai and Yahweh and say, Barakatah and Shalak Rayam, Wa'adawamyam, they'll call it Ebonics and act like it's ghetto, okay? Which is wicked as hell, man. But they clearly made up that language. They clearly changed it around. It's a fact. Historically, they did that. They added vowels, and nobody says calls it anything. All right, but that's just what's supposed to happen. The bywords and the hissing, that the Israelites we are to get in these times, because the Lord chose children to rule over us, and those children are Edomites, and the head of them are the Amalekites, aka the Khazars, aka the Small Hats. All right, the Eastern European JOOs, right, and these are the people that's governing the world through the money and power. All right, they're in the highest positions, the NCAA's, high political positions, high lower positions. You seen what happened when Harvard, spoke. The students spoke in support of Palestine, and they shut that. They shut them up real fast, man. You got they over there destroying that land for the Gaza, to get that Gaza Strip under control, as well as to their bombing. Vocab, listen to this. I know he don't listen to this, but anyway, they out there bombing churches, Christian churches. People hiding in churches, they're bombing the church. Christians, they don't believe in the Lord. All right? To you Christians, they don't believe in the Lord. They actually believe that his crucifixion was justified. They believe what the story of the wicked people in the Bible was telling in the New Testament, in the books of the Lord. They believe the people that were saying, release Barbarous, release the known thief, the known robber. They believe that the people that were saying that was right. Okay? Think about that. That's anti-Messiah. So, Vocab, would you agree that the Small Hats, JOOs, are anti-Messiahs? They're anti-Christ. Because they're literally against who he is. They barely believe he was a prophet. But they'll tell you, I just believe, because they can lie to you. But they believe that he deserved to be crucified. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what I'm saying. So you go into John, that if you don't believe the record, right? But Vocab got time for us. He got time to talk about us and what we need to be doing and how evil we are, follow us around with a megaphone. Just because he's hired by them anyway. All right, just like Candace Owens, just like a lot of these guys are hired, and it's proof that they pay you to do certain things, propaganda in their light, because they'll pay you seven bands as a streamer per pro-Israel rhetoric, dog, is crazy. 7 bands of your tax money. Hey, hey, I'm gonna take your money. I'm gonna take your money, then I'm gonna pay you back with your money if you tell everybody we good people. That's bro, that is crazy. These people rob everybody blind and then give them a couple dollars back. So then you gotta say thank you, sir. If you don't say thank you don't get your own money back. You know what I'm saying? This is the craziness. You know, they're never doing anything. Like they said, why there's no the farmers that are small houses, and it's like, oh, I don't want to live in this. They're persecuted. It's like, no, you don't want to work hard. You don't want to work hard. And people don't work hard, man. You know, bunch of pedos. You know, it's a bunch of nastiness, filthiness, trans activity. When those so-called, not so-called, because they were, the Nazis were destroying books and they're destroying the same thing we're going through now and America's letting happen. Adolf Hitler was fighting against. I ain't no Adolf Hitler, Stalin, Napoleon. I ain't with none of. I'm with the tribe of Israel. I'm with King David, Solomon, Yahweh Shai. I'm with that. All right, because Esau and his wickedness would try to associate you with ideas that he created to demonize, like ISIS or even me saying these buzzwords could be shocking the algorithm and getting certain things pointed and putting me in a certain category for even speaking on it. But the point is that they set, Hitler was trying to get them. He kicked them out and all that, gas. It wasn't all that. These people were breaking them down and stripping them of their power that they had, because they was out there creating wickedness in the world. And if whatever wickedness you trying to imagine, just deal with what we're dealing with now. Just like they're taking all our money, but then taking 20 billion of that and sending it to, I believe, Argentina. But then you'll take and take all the SNAP benefits from American citizens. Make that make sense. Make that make sense. You're saying all these billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine, which we already went over how they spread into that land, and then they sending billions of dollars over to Israel, which you're not feeding your own Americans, bro. Like Israel got free healthcare, we don't. Now, I'm not here to sit there and I'm not doing this argument. I don't care. But my point is that there's clearly an agenda here. There's clearly a side and you're not on it. You just, through propaganda, they make people feel like they're a part of something that they're not. So you can go vote. You can go and cash your check. You got a chance to make some riches. You got a chance to sell some shit. But you will never get what they got. You got to go to them to get any approval. If you want to open up a business, you got to go to them. You got to find one of their lawyers, find one of their politicians, find one of their, and ask, can I make some money with y'all? I'll let you have that little store in the corner. If that. It's just like these SNAP benefits being cut, which is funny. I want to see the good part of it. But there's another part that these grocery stores are going to be heavily affected. Not your Walmarts, though. Not these super corporations. But your neighborhood, I can't think of the neighborhoods ones around here, like the family fairs, and we got family fairs out here. Your Schwagmans, your Piccadillys, the little small ones that kind of be around, that they're just around your regional area, but then the Walmarts ain't going nowhere. They ain't going to be affected because the government going to give them subsidies, just like they did during the pandemic in 2020 when they was losing all that money because of the hours, the closing of the stores, and they gave them big business subsidies. Them small business probably got subsidy, but they couldn't handle the impact. All right, them people probably living check to check. They couldn't handle not getting nothing at all because you probably was paying for their rent and all that, but they couldn't take that hit of not making money and keeping their store open and keeping their product flowing, which is, it broke down a lot of small businesses, and it was almost like land grabs, extorting them, pushing them out and taking what they had, taking their spots so they could open up whatever, because these people are trying to create small cities and smart cities and all that, man. Hawaii, Jamaica, California, Then you got Trump out here building bunkers, building bunkers, ballroom bunkers and shit. Something big is coming down the pipe, man. Like I said, for these small hats to be allowing so-called so much anti-Semitic propaganda to come down the pipe, and they're already in a position of making laws to stop people coming against anti-Semitism. All right, and then you got the CK Captain Kirk killjoy, situation happening, which stirs up that same pot. All right, you got people getting financially afflicted, okay? Mortgage rates and all that, prices is going up, medical is going up, and then they keep pushing out that, they did this, they did that, and the JWOs are giving it, and they're doing it on purpose. They're showing you, I'm about to take your money, you starving, then I'm a floss in front of you and give these people the money. It's naturally going to stir you to anger, and they want that to happen because they want insurrection so they could bring down these draconian laws and ultimately bring in the MOTB and control everybody, because ain't nobody going to do nothing to them small hats. The Lord's going to have to get involved because they got too much power, okay? These people own the strongest country in America, man, which is America. I mean, it's the strongest country in the world, which is America, okay? And this strongest country in the world has other strong-ass allies, Europe, okay? But the allies is not the struggle, it's the money. It's the money, it's the resources. That's the real money. And that's what they have to constantly fight for, and that's what they're constantly fighting to control. And that's why they're littering themselves into these other countries and getting into high positions so they can ultimately get control of those resources, as they've been trying to do, been doing, But a lot of these countries are rising up against them. Nigeria, Ibrahim, there's another guy that's with him. A lot of Hamites are bucking up, BRICS. Venezuela's bucking up. That's why they're going through it, because they don't want to give their oil up. It ain't about no damn fentanyl. All right? Venezuela don't even produce fentanyl like that. The motherfuckers produce cocaine. You know what I'm saying? But they'll just tell you anything. They'll bomb a boat and say they're bombing fentanyl boats. It's like, just because they put it on TV and Trump says it, doesn't make it true. Nobody says, was that really a boat carrying fentanyl? Is that boat big enough to travel from Venezuela over here in one trip? How y'all knew that was a fentanyl boat? Maybe just, CIA says it. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot going on. And that's what he do. He floods the world with lies so you don't know what the truth is. That's part of their war tactics. But I'm going to leave it right there. With that being said, and give all praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rachak double honor to our apostles who are elders who rule well. Blessed salutations to you brothers out there teaching and enduring truth and sincerity. Shalom.